If we can get them to the point where we make them more money than we cost them, we know we can work together forever. It just makes sense. I think the quality of your audience research can really affect the conversion rate of the people who you actually manage to get on that page. It's very easy to put people off. Like, the whole point of content is to build a rapport and trust with someone. If you can really describe their problem in a way that they're like, oh yeah, like this person gets me and they know me, then you instantly think, this is the person who can help me. What do they need to know, but they don't know they need to know? I've seen sites with 100,000 in traffic on like random blog posts that are not doing anything really. Can we use that to start making sure we're embedding bits about our product, or like talking about our product, or like embedding an ebook that we can get downloads for? We have 100,000 people hitting this page right now. What can we do with that?
Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Search with Candour, the podcast where I, your host, Jack Chambers-Ward, interview the best and brightest minds across SEO and digital marketing. This week, I am joined by the one and only Ben Goodey. Ben is a lovely guy who runs an agency called Spicy Margarita, maybe my favorite name of recent years for an agency, and a very rudely named newsletter and community as well that I won't name. I'll let Ben explain that when we get to the interview. In the meantime, like I said, this is a podcast where I interview the best and brightest minds, and this topic this week is all about how to actually make money from SEO. I know a lot of us have been talking about traffic, a lot of us talk about impressions and clicks and all this kind of stuff. How do you actually get revenue from your SEO strategies? How do you make money for you, yourself, your clients, whatever you're working on, and how do you actually make money from SEO? That's exactly what Ben and I are going to talk about this week. So without any further ado, here is my conversation with Ben Goodey, all about how you can make money from SEO. My guest this week has worked in SEO for over 10 years. He's the creator of How the Fuck, a brilliant community and collection of SEO strategies, case studies, and podcasts, and is the founder of Spicy Margarita, an SEO agency focused on revenue-driven strategies, which is very relevant to this week's topic. Welcome to the show, Ben Goodey. Thank you. Hi. Thanks for having me. I get so much joy out of hearing people say, how the fuck. It's still. I appreciate the commitment to a brand where you force people to swear. As someone who has to hold back their swearing on this podcast most of the time, it's very nice to just say rude words and get away with it professionally. You know? So yeah, I kind of hinted at it there a little bit. Obviously, we're going to talk about how businesses can actually make money from SEO. And I mentioned Spicy Margarita being your agency that kind of focus a lot on that kind of strategy. So I kind of want to kick things off with you, Ben, with why you think this is an important topic to talk about, why it has become a key part of your business and your strategy as a whole. And then we'll kind of get into details as we go, I guess.
Yeah, cool. Yeah. So why is how to make money with SEO an important topic? I think so many SEO plans and strategies, and why people kind of get turned away from SEO as something to invest in, is that they follow kind of strategies for SEO that focus too much on traffic and don't actually make money. And yeah, having come from a background myself where I worked in-house and worked in very small startups that needed to like make money or die kind of thing, and just kind of, I knew it was a very good place to learn like what founders and CEOs and things and people like that actually want. And yeah, they come out of conversations we had in the early days of like, oh great, we got 1,000 traffic, but what's the point in that? And I think that's why this is important. Yeah, like you don't want to invest in either an agency or in doing SEO in-house and just never translate into results. So yeah. Yeah, definitely. I think that's a really relevant conversation, especially as we were talking about just before we started recording. The advent, the dawn of the zero-click search we may be seeing with things like the massive reduction in click-through rate we've seen with AI overviews, obviously the impending AI mode that is going to be shifting Google in a significant way. I think a focus on conversions and revenue is really something hopefully we're seeing a lot of people kind of switch onto. And if you're not, viewers and listeners, hopefully this conversation will inspire you. That's the plan, right? Yes. Yeah. That's exactly, yeah. I think like I feel in the lucky spot that we focused on as an agency this side of SEO as well, because traffic has slowly stopped becoming the name of the game in a way. Like Google's eating your traffic, LLMs don't really pass traffic on. So visibility and the revenue side of things is becoming more important.
Yeah, definitely. I think very much been the kind of buzzword we've seen at the moment in 2025, the whole really brand and visibility, like everybody's talking about that kind of stuff. And it's
Mhm.
nice to kind of take that to the next step and talk about the money side of things. So I think you're spot on, as you said just now. When it comes to small businesses, when it comes to big businesses, it doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, you're probably going to need to make money somewhere from the investment you're putting into your marketing. So that's quite an important topic to discuss with the C-suite and the stakeholders and things like that, right? You can talk
Yeah,
about impressions and clicks all day long, but where's my money? How are you making me money? Is often the reply that's going to come back.
definitely. And that's how you hold on to your budget as well. Yeah. I think something that really works with us for clients, like as soon as if we can get them to the point where we make them more money than we cost them, we know we can work together forever because it just makes sense. And that's kind of, I think, how in-house teams can think about it. Like if you want to keep investing in SEO, if it makes a lot of money, it becomes like very important and irremovable kind of thing. Is that a right word?
Yeah, irreplaceable, that kind of
Irre-
thing.
Irreplaceable. Yeah, that's the right word. I was thinking like immovable or like, yeah,
Yeah,
immovable.
yeah. The unstoppable force meets the immovable object in
Yeah, exactly.
the Hulk
Yeah.
Hogan versus Andre the Giant WrestleMania 3. But yeah, I think you're totally right. Like if you can prove to the stakeholders and the people that matter, the decision makers, whether that's like you said in-house or you're working with clients as an agency or a freelancer, you can kind of show that it would be your best interest to not stop working with us, to not reduce the budget, to not cut down work. And that's a really nice place to be. And we had a conversation with a client who was very much affected by the tariff shift to the US. A lot of their products and
Mm.
manufacturing was being done overseas and it was affected by this. And they had a real kind of big internal discussion and had to restructure a lot of stuff. And the big conversation with us is like, I mean, what you guys are doing is making us a lot of money, and there is a very high return on investment here. So we really want to prioritize you. And I have totally been on the other side of that as an agency, being you're the first one to go because you're an external team. Sorry, that's the gig, right? And we
Mhm.
had fortunately built enough of great content, great relationship, all this kind of stuff, and worked really well with them that, as you said, we kind of become such an integral part of their money making, an integral part of their budget and their revenue. Like it would be kind of silly to stop working with you guys now because it's still working.
Yeah, you got so much buy-in because your SEO is aligned with what the business actually, the whole goal of the business. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Is that kind of conversation you'd have with almost in that onboarding stage, right? With the client initially, like get an idea of those goals so you can then structure your strategy around that.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I think like that first kind of initial conversation we'd have with clients, like they a lot of them come to us because they're like revenue is the ultimate goal, but maybe there is like a particular product they'd like to push more of, or like they want demos or they want signups, or like there are those kind of, yeah, we have to know what we're prioritizing. Um, yeah, and some clients do come along and say like, actually, we're a really big company. What we want is visibility and traffic and impressions, and we don't make that much money from our SEO. It's more about visibility, but like it's a similar mindset. You know, that's their part. They care about that. They just care about brand because they sell in store. You know, they just want to be visible. So, but for most people who sell online, it's about, yeah, the bottom of funnel leads. So not like downloads of ebooks, not like newsletter subscribers, but yeah, demo requests from usually quality traffic, people that they're targeting at the moment, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I think a lot of that, kind of the shift we've seen over the last few years, is people rethinking their strategies when it comes to keywords and queries and thinking more about exactly as you were saying there, Ben, the intent side of things, right? When you're thinking about the bottom of the funnel stuff, you're thinking about product pages and informational versus transactional versus navigational kind of intent. I think a lot of us, thankfully, have moved in the right direction, and as we were saying just now, kind of sets you up quite nicely for what we believe to be potentially the future of search coming up, with a reduction in clicks. If you are able to directly answer someone's search intent, you can build that almost relationship with the customer long term, right? So does that then kind of tie into the process, that customer research stage in the strategy process as well?
Yeah, definitely. I think like the quality of your audience research can really affect the conversion rate of the people who you actually manage to get on that page. Because it's very easy to look at a commercial keyword, like best something software or like top companies for this, and be like, oh, like we should have that. But knowing, the better you know your audience, maybe you know that that's something that they wouldn't search, or that's not the way they would say it, kind of thing. So I think like the deeper you can get into the audience research, the better you can align with, what your audience really would search. And hopefully their stage in the buying journey that's most like warm to like hearing about your products and things like that.
Yeah, I've used this example on the podcast a couple of times already. There's a particular client I worked with a few years ago that worked with big like architectural and big kind of like industrial projects and stuff, and had to really kind of have that discussion with the client, thinking, okay, you don't want to write the content as if you're writing it for me, who doesn't know anything about architecture or industrial projects for big like franchise companies, things like that. I'm a digital marketer and a podcaster. I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. Like there's always a phrase of like, write it as if they were a 6-year-old. Like, right, but the audience aren't 6-year-olds. The audience for this particular client are professional architects and like project managers for huge construction companies and stuff. They know more about this stuff than I do. So you need to be aware of their education level, their knowledge, their, as you said, the preparedness for actually buying in and purchasing. So writing something generic and being like, this is how you build a structure for a supermarket, like build a new car park for a supermarket. It's like, cool. I don't know how to do that. I wouldn't know where to start. But the people we're talking to are already 2, 3, 5, 10 steps ahead of me because they've worked in the industry already, right? And it was really kind of a rethinking of like, how do we write content for people who already know this stuff? How do we engage them on their level and, like you said, where they are? And for me, that's kind of the big key of audience research and customer research, is meeting people where they are, right? Whether that's literally the platform or their knowledge base or whatever it is. To meet somebody where they are already removes so much of that friction in that process.
Yeah, 100%. I think you can. It's very easy to put people off. The whole point of content is to build like that rapport and trust with someone, and if you start talking to them as if you don't know who they are and you don't know anything about the industry, really, you're just like, the opposite effect happens. I think you just go, well, they don't know anything about this. Maybe they probably not someone I don't want to talk to. Like, whereas if you actually nail it and you can reflect their problem that they have back to them, like if you can really describe their problem in a way that they're like, oh yeah, like this person gets me and they know me, then you instantly think, this is the person who can help me. We use internally for our content, we use something called the Lima framework, which was created by Lily Ugbaya, who used to work with the company. And that a big part of that is asking the question, or a couple of questions, before you start writing the piece or when we start briefing the piece, which is like, one of them is, what does this reader already know? And then it's like, what do they want to know is the next question. And then what do they need to know, but they don't know they need to know? And that's where we can. So the first one, make sure, what do they already know? Means we don't include that stuff, so we don't bore them. What do they want to know? That's serving their search intent, making sure we give them what they're looking for. And then what do they need to know but they don't know about yet, is where you can bring in like information gain, or you can bring in like something that makes them go, oh, God, I didn't know I need to know that. These people clearly know what I need. And I think it's a nice framing to look at.
Yeah, definitely. Funny if I had Lily was on the show a couple of years ago talking about the framework, and
Yeah,
I think you're absolutely spot on. Like, you can meet them where they are, but when you can go that step further, and exactly you said there, and as Lily says in the framework, where you can answer questions they didn't even know they had, and you feel like, oh, I hadn't even thought about that. Oh, that's really clever. That's always a big thing for me. Like, I am someone who gets very frustrated and very easily put off, as you said there, Ben, by
yeah,
being patronized too. If I like, I've been podcasting for 15 years. If I'm looking to find a new microphone, I need to know specifics. I need to know details. I am an audio
yeah,
nerd. I know what I'm talking about. I know what I need. And
yeah,
if you're just like, this one is £10 on Amazon, I'm like, yeah, cool. That's not the thing I'm looking for. I'm
yeah,
looking to be like, professional audio quality type stuff. And then there'll be moments where it's like, oh, this is actually adaptable for this thing, or you can shift I'm going to be real audio nerd for a second, shift the cardioid pattern, so you can record two people sitting across a table or one person directly and all this kind of stuff. Like,
yeah,
that's the kind of thing I need, and I wouldn't even thought of that. I was recommending a microphone to a friend of mine the other day. That's probably the most common question I get is, I need to do a podcast. What microphone would you recommend? And I was like, I know. If it's two people in the same room, I'd recommend this. If you're recording remotely, I'd recommend this. Two different things. And it was a thing for me of like, let me just check my recommendations, over the last couple of years are still relevant. And I went through that process as if I was searching for it. And I was like, okay, what would I see if I was searching for this kind of thing? If I was less, aware of what's going on in the industry and all that kind of stuff. And it was really interesting to kind of, for want of a better phrase, like get my hands dirty again, get back into the trenches in a lot of ways. And I think, I don't know about you, but that's a lot of the fun of that customer research for me, is like trying to put yourself in the shoes of the user, of the customer, think
yeah.
about where they are, what they're thinking, what the kind of questions they're having. What is that process like for you to get those kind of questions, the kind of data, the kind of information?
It's yeah, the microphone one is. I was going to go back to that. Is a really good example. I was thinking because I've been in that situation where I want to buy a microphone for a podcast, and the last thing you want to see is just a generic blog. But if, like, for me, like, having bought microphones and they've been really bad,
Yep.
like, and they haven't given me the sound quality, like, all I really want to know as a reader is this going to sound like those crisp professional microphones that people have?
Exactly. Yeah.
And if you started that blog post knowing that insight and said, I know what you really want is that sound, on like the famous podcast that you listen to, and these are the microphones that give it to you, kind of thing, I'd be like, I'm in, like, so I'm buying something. Yeah. Sorry, what was your question?
So, well, I'm gonna keep on that microphone then, because you give me an excuse to talk about microphones now. It's always the Shure SM7B. I don't know if you've ever noticed that, but if you've done that kind of research, it's always that bloody microphone, and I have one of those microphones. It's not this one. This is a Rode. But yeah, you're totally right. I think that speaks to almost like the platform and the format of your content a lot as well, right? When you're looking for something like a microphone recommendation, I'm going to go to YouTube. I'm probably not going to type it into Google. I might type into Google to get some stats and get some, be nerdy about it, like get some specs and all that kind of stuff. But I want somebody, I want somebody to record into microphone A and be like, hello, this is microphone A. And then, hello, this is microphone B, and record into different things. And like, this is literally how it looks. There's a couple of brilliant guys I would recommend. I'll put links in the show notes for them if you do want to be nerdy listeners like me. And literally, like, there is no processing. This is the interface, because that matters as well. What the interface you're plugging into, or the like, have I put any extra effects onto this? All this kind of stuff, all the really, really nerdy stuff.
Yeah,
Like, I will EQ my voice, I will EQ your voice by the time this is edited and released and stuff. For the most part, I don't edit the interviews very much, unless there's obviously technical issues or whatever. But I will still go through and noise reduce and EQ and tidy up bits and all this kind of thing, because there's always a little, a neat, nice little way of doing it. But you can also do that shit with AI very easily and just chuck it through an AI processor, and it can sound great and it can sound garbled and weird. And I think for me, you can say the same thing about content, right? You can really craft and hone it and be really aware of what people want. For me as a podcaster and essentially a YouTube creator at this point, you go through that process of like, this is my editing, this is, the creation I'm doing with you now, Ben, is this is the content. And then that editing, that tweaking, that all that extra bits is the stuff that makes a big difference to nerds like me, to audio nerds, to podcasting people, to a lot of professionals, right? And then you could just half-ass it and chuck it through an AI processor. I've stopped listening to podcasts because they do that personally. And I've done the same thing for writers. I've done the same thing for, you see a brand that is very clearly AI generated their ad imagery. I'm like, that's not the one. I'm not keen on that. Like,
Completely. You didn't put time and effort into this, so I'm not going to read it.
Exactly. Yeah. If you don't care about your product, why should I, kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. And that, by the way, is easily, as an agency, like, to find a writer who gets that and cares enough to write an article that like about microphones, like to that level, it's like easily the hardest thing that we can do, like content operations to that level. It's genuinely very big challenge. And that's why I'm still a bit baffled by people who use AI to generate content. Like, I don't know, I can't do it that well with so many humans,
Yeah. I think there's plenty of room for AI in the processes, like structurally, and I'm coming up with ideas and stuff like that. But
Definitely.
at the end of the day, you're right. Like, there is nothing that will replace someone who has really done the work, put the hours in, done the research, and actually knows what they're talking about, compared to I could just churn it out and it will collect the most common things from a answer by committee type stuff, right? I find I want to gravitate towards creators who I know they know what they're talking about and they can prove it to me. Like, you sticking with the microphone example, I can literally see them talking into a microphone in a studio, use it as an example, all that kind of stuff. And they even do crazy tests, like, they'll go and sit right back from the microphone, and this is how it sounds when I'm really far away from the microphone. You would never do that. That's a terrible, I'm sorry, listeners, that was probably bad audio, but you would never do that in real life. You would never podcast from halfway across the room. But in case there is noise from the other side of the room, if your dog walks in or your cat scratching or whatever, you might want to know what the rest of the room sounds like. And it's little things like that again, that's the, I'd never thought of that kind of content we were just talking about, right? And I think that coming back around to that customer research thing. What's that process for you to gather that data? Are you going in and looking at keywords? Are you having conversations with customers? Are you kind of going through that process with the client and kind of talking to their sales team? What's the kind of process for you in the customer research stage?
It's a good question. There's a few tricks. We have like a very thorough onboarding questionnaire, which is a starting point. Just tell us, how people think, like what like all about your product and what objections people have typically, and like all those kind of good questions to dig into that kind of stuff. And then we ask for things like sales calls, like gong recordings, or like and it's great when people send us that, because even just listening to one customer feedback call connects the dots between, all right, this is like a real person, first of all. Like, this isn't just like a target audience. This is like a person who had a project internally, and like however much you think they care about your product, like they have a life and they don't. They just want to go to work. There's like all these things that helps you humanize your reader. But it also helps us pick out like pain points and how they think and the phrases they say, which is really good for picking out like if you had those things that we can talk about in an introduction of an article, like pain, like what, like were you in this, are you in this scenario? And here's, if you are in this scenario, then read this article, kind of thing. Can help us do things like that. So those are the two main ways. I think like working with the clients, like the clients are often like the audience experts. So like working with them to like make sure they read through and edit and vet our content is a very important stage, and like make sure over time that we really get it. And And then on top of that, when it comes to individual articles, like we're doing a lot of research into like Reddit threads or depending on the client, like we also will have like maybe an SME interview, like a subject matter expert interview, where we're like, if we really don't get it and the topic requires some real nuance, then we'll like have a layer in an actual expert. But with someone like yourself, you've got a podcast. Can you tell us about microphones, and then we get some insights? So I think those are the main ways.
Yeah, I totally agree. Like bringing in the expert is always a nice touch for me, and I think a lot of people would be surprised that the people who work with your clients or in your company are often the subject experts of that industry. Like don't be afraid to, again, using the same company I mentioned earlier, who did a lot of big industrial projects and things like that. We were using, obviously, mostly communicating with the marketing manager as the external SEO agency. But then when we would need expert advice or particular tips or a quote for a digital PR piece or whatever it is, you can then speak to the technical director or the operations manager and, hey, could you put me in touch with so-and-so, who is the person who knows this stuff, who's been doing this for 20 years and is the guy who is going out there, or the person that's going out there to do the work and have the conversations and stuff. And I think that ties perfectly into what you were saying earlier with the sales call stuff as well, when you can actually put a human voice, a real living, breathing person's problems in context, rather, again, maybe similar to what we're saying about AI as well, rather than just most customers say this. It's like, okay, yeah, cool, but where's the data for that, right? You could just be making that up. And I find a lot of, I don't know if you find this as well, Ben, in that onboarding process, you might get an instance where a client thinks they have one thing or thinks they are one thing or known for one thing or are solving a particular problem. And it turns out they're probably not true. They're more known for solving a different problem, or actually they're offering a slightly different than they expected.
Yeah, that's like a worrying situation that does happen when they don't seem to know that. Like they don't know what's converting and why, and you look and you're like, damn, this stuff is converting, and they're like, oh, you're like, wow. But yeah, I think it's pretty common. So there's so much to do as an in-house marketer. But yeah, I think also like I've had a similar experience with one of our clients where they had like quite a complicated industry that was very about relationship kind of based selling, but they had like chief like evangelists and things like that in house who really knew the space and really knew everyone in it and knew what the issues company faced, and that having that person always on Slack or whatever is just like brilliant.
Yeah, definitely. I think there's always like I said, the power to have that kind of conversation and build those connections. And again, it feels like kind of marketing 101 stuff, right? But it's building relationships, it's building that rapport, it's building those connections, it's networking, it's all that kind of stuff, right? And whether that's conversations with the in-house team, your agency side, your colleagues, the customers, I think actually having conversations about this stuff, and hopefully instances like this, like a podcast, where you can be like an external, a third party to a conversation in that sense as well. Like Ben and I are bouncing ideas off of each other as we speak, right? This is the whole point of this kind of show. And for me, I think that helps a lot of my brain to process things. Again, that kind of, I would never have thought of that kind of process, but also reassuring you that you're on the right path. I find this a lot if I go to a conference or listen to a podcast and see somebody speak at a conference. Like, oh yeah, thank God I'm not the only person that thought that. Oh, okay, yeah, my strategy does make sense because a lot of other people in the industry seem to be agreeing. Not saying you need to follow and always just follow the trends and all that kind of stuff, but I find that stuff, even if you're not learning new things, it can be helpful to have those conversations. Maybe the customer will perfectly reinforce what you had already found in your research. You're like, okay, thank God we're on the right track. The data backs up exactly what the human people are saying, and everything's going well. And I guess for that process, when does the competitor side tie into it? How do you look at comparing that customer data, the competitor data, and getting a broader landscape of the industry?
I think we try. I am a believer in not looking too much at what competitors are doing,
Mm.
because it's often easy to be like, they've just done this, we should do that. And
We've all had that call with a client.
yeah, I get that a lot. Are you seeing this? We need that page too. And you're like, we can do that, but like we also have a strategy, like our own strategy. But yeah, so I think on one level it can be so valuable, especially if you're new or you haven't been investing SEO in SEO a lot, and one of your competitors has. You can get a lot of insights into what successes they're having, what areas like keywords they've gone after, and you can think through whether that makes sense for yourself. You can also, it can, like, in a way, it's a very big shortcut to keyword research. If they're very similar to you, it may help you identify those bottom of funnel keywords that you hadn't thought of, and or like a really like scalable topic area that you can also like do the same thing. So I think that's very important. And I think in general, like there's a lot of metrics that you can look at to see how difficult competition would be to beat as well. And I think being realistic is a very important part of SEO as well. Like if you're a tiny brand and you're going up and you're building basically a Zoom replica, like they are years ahead. They have so much authority. Like SEO itself may not be a good place to start to get your foothold in the market, or it may be, but you gotta not go for like meeting software because it's so dominated. So I think there's that way of looking at it as well, to factor in competition.
Yeah, I think you're totally right about the mature market side of things. I've definitely seen that where almost like very common with startups, right? Somebody gets a cool idea and they think they're pushing the boundaries and changing the world. Like, yeah, you can kind of already do that on your phone. Like, oh, okay, yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. Like the level, especially with technology, and obviously that's very common in startups, the level of technology and the adaptability and stuff. I had a client, I want to say 2 or 3 years ago now, that was talking specifically about I'm trying to think how to word this, kind of like a telepromptery kind of UI that would layer over the top of a call. So say we're using StreamYard to record this right now, or Zoom or Google Meet or whatever it is, and it would layer over the top of it. So you'd have your show notes in front of you. And I'm like, you could do that on your phone. Like there are functions on my phone to do that right now. You could hover a Google Doc and adjust transparency of a window and float it over the top of a thing. I can also do that on a PC or a Mac or whatever. Like there's Chrome plugins to do that. I don't need an entire separate piece of software. And I get it. Like there are totally different use cases and stuff like that. As someone who wishes they had a proper teleprompter sometimes, so I could just look at the camera the whole time and I'm not looking down at you, Ben, here on my screen. I always feel guilty if I'm not looking at the camera. But there's always that kind of element of, yeah, cool, you could do that, but have you actually looked at the bigger picture? And I think you're totally right. Don't spend too much time. Don't get bogged down with all that kind of stuff. But there's also the side of it, as we mentioned earlier, I think it's very common with clients who don't have that kind of experience. They might not even know who their competitors are from an organic search point of view, right?
Yeah.
Compared to maybe, like you said, on the street brick and mortar stores might be different to what is appearing in the SERPs and vice versa. So how do you kind of approach that kind of conversation with a client and get into that kind of research there as well?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think, often people, you go, who are your competitors? And they go, this person, this person, this person. And then you look at the search results and they're not the same people competing with them for the same keywords, for some reason or another. But I think it's important to listen, like, to them. It's good insight. Like it's a good place to start with them. Like we know who are you hearing on sales calls? Who's always coming up as a competitor or someone they're also considering. And then we look there and see, like, is SEO something they're using to grow? And if they are, awesome. Like maybe that we can start to like take tips from them. But if they're not, we just sort of we may include those competitors in comparison pages and things like that. So we'll make sure they have bottom of funnel content on it, making sure like sales team can use that content. So like true competitor versus your company. But when we're competing on search, we're kind of not looking at them anymore. We're looking at who you actually got to beat. I think that's, I think showing them I think that's easy to show them, like they might say like, well, that's funny. We never hear those names. And honestly, that might be a good insight. You got to really check that it's an insight. Maybe they're not getting leads from SEO or something, but it's good to look. It's a good way to look into it. I think just showing the client usually gets them they're fine with that.
Yeah, a literal screenshot of a SERP in like an onboarding conversation. I've seen so many reactions where you get the like, oh, really?
Yeah.
I would never have thought, household name A would be in here, but actually independent brand B is here as well. It's like, they're not even competing with you on a high street level, but they are eating your lunch and stealing your lunch money in the SERP. So you kind of need to be aware of that when you're thinking about your content strategy.
Yeah, exactly. And I really like what you said about the teleprompter as well. Like I had a really good conversation with April Dunford, who is like a positioning expert, on my podcast years and years ago. And she said like people don't realize that their main, like for 99% of software products out there, the biggest competitor is a spreadsheet. And I think that's definitely rang true at most companies I've worked with, or even leads that come to me like that. They're not comparing loads of tools for this necessarily. They want to know the one that they trust, and it's versus their status quo, rather than anyone that you're too worried about, kind of thing. And I think that's a good reason to stay like focused on your own plan.
Yeah, definitely. Let's get into some conversions and revenue discussion then. What are the kind of things, the kind of metrics, I guess, and data you'd be talking with a client about when it comes to not just talking about rankings, not just talking about traffic, but actually getting into that revenue conversation? Is it all focused on attribution and tracking and all that kind of stuff? Or is it a broader discussion about, I don't know, even like profits and budgets and all that kind of stuff as well? How granular are you getting with those kind of conversations?
Good question. I think the first thing that we want to set up is just, are we actually tracking conversions at all?
That helps.
Yeah. A lot of, to be honest, most people are not. So it's a really good place to start. Do you know? Because then you can see like the journey, which landing page did they start on? So like, and then how many people directly converted? That's like where we want to make sure we set that up so we can show that like, look, this piece of content we created, someone landed on it from Google and then booked us a demo with you or something like that. So I think that's like our first metric. That later down the line leads to questions like, oh yeah, we got 10 demos, but all of them were not our ideal target customer, so we just ignored them, or we didn't even talk to them in the first place. And you're like, oh, no way. But yeah, so we want to like always have like ideally they have a platform like HubSpot set up, and you can actually see like who converted and if eventually it closed and became a customer. And that's the ideal thing, is like closed revenue. And so for some clients that's incredibly easy. Like they're a small team, they hear it on sales calls all the time. We found you on Google, and they become customers, and people are just happy. Like they don't even need to necessarily track the number, because they're just like, it's happening. It's definitely happening a lot. But if they are a more serious, like maybe SaaS company with like a revenue operations and tracking the conversions down the funnel too, and how many like customers closed, that's ideally what we would look at, like closed won revenue. I think
I think that's a lot of the, like you said, the tracking and attribution is so important. And as I conversation with Dana DiTomaso a couple of weeks ago. It was like, a lot of people do not track this stuff properly, whether you're using GA4 or whatever analytics platform you're using, or even in your CRM, and you're not able to attribute stuff there. You really, really kind of need to. And it comes all the way back to the conversation we were having at the very beginning of this episode. The ROI of it all. You can't prove return on investment if you don't know the revenue that it's generating from that investment. As you said, like the ideal instance there, Ben, is somebody is paying an SEO retainer to you as an agency, and you are making more money for them than they are paying to you. That is, golden rule, perfect relationship with the client type stuff, right?
Yeah.
They're paying $5,000, you're making them 10 grand, whatever it is. And for me, if you can't attribute anything and you're kind of like, I don't know, you seem to be making more money, right? There's no confidence in that. That's not how you build that relationship with a client. That's like, everything seems to be fine, I think. Like there's a time and a place to be honest about what you know and what you don't know. But also, if you can get the data, get the bloody data. Like be aware of what you need to track and what you need to pay attention to, right?
Yeah. It's very boring, but it's very important. That's how I see it. And if you can set it up once and you can report on it in some way, like when someone asks, that's it's a very powerful part of a conversation, and keeping the client or keeping their boss happy.
Yeah, definitely. So how do you go about that process, I guess, of having a discussion about conversions and revenue and all that kind of stuff? Because I often find, I think this is pretty much the theme of last year's podcast of all through 2024, was SEO not working in a silo, right? Us as digital marketers need to be aware of the broader digital marketing spectrum. We need to be aware of what paid teams are doing, what UX is happening, what web design, web development, all this kind of stuff. I find we often end up stepping on the toes of CRO a lot there. Do you think that's a relevant thing we should be learning as SEOs? Do you think that's a relevant thing we should be aware of? Or do you feel like we're kind of stepping on the toes of and maybe another team in some senses?
CRO specifically? Or UX? No,
well, I guess UX as well. I guess it kind of ties in. Again, the whole point is it's all kind of working together.
Yeah. No, I'm 100% a believer in all of these working together. I think we have like things to learn from PPC. I think social media can be very useful for SEO, especially now when AI is looking at social media as well. Sometimes bringing in Instagram, and I think that's now going to be part of SEO. But yeah, I don't think you can write a good landing page or blog post without being like pretty savvy in like the user experience and CRO and like getting in your reader's head and knowing what will make them convert and things like that. So yeah, I think it's really important. I think it's really like, it's also like part of SEO, reducing friction to information. How quickly can we serve the intent behind these people? How can we get rid of like anything confusing and simplify? And yeah, I think that is, for me, that's very like core to how we think about SEO.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's a lot of the fundamental principles, again, coming back around to a lot of marketing stuff, marketing 101 stuff. When you're thinking about conversion rates, you think about click-through rates, a lot of people kind of see those as two very separate practices. Obviously, the difference coming from a SERP to a page and then where you go from that page. But a lot of people are happy to talk about internal links. A lot of people are happy to talk about CTAs. A lot of people are happy to talk about content structure and all this kind of stuff. Like, yeah, that's CRO, people. Like, you are already doing that stuff without even realizing it, without knowing it. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, definitely don't see like where SEO stops as getting the click to the page. I think it all matters. Definitely. I think it even all matters to getting that click to the page. So
definitely.
Yeah.
Have you ever had that kind of conversation with a client? And I'm guessing you have, because I think we all have. We're getting a lot of traffic, but not many conversions, kind of thing, and having that discussion with, maybe from a content perspective, might be a product page perspective, whatever it is. How do you approach that kind of conversation when you're thinking, you need to be thinking about this from a revenue. You need to be thinking about conversions. It's not just about clicks. We're getting clicks, but we're not getting any money. How do you approach that kind of conversation with the client?
Oh, yeah, it's a difficult one. I think like if we've done all the right things, like we're targeting the right intent, and it's the bottom of funnel, and it's getting traffic but no conversions. It's a slightly different conversation to we've written a load of content that was never going to convert because it's traffic driving content. So there's like two like slightly different conversations there, and there's lots of reasons why things might not be converting or resonating. But I think I think a good thing to do is I think traffic basically can be used, like if you have an audience and you have a load of traffic, but it's not converting, thinking about other ways that audience can now be used. So if it is more top of funnel traffic, like, can you use that? Like, I've seen sites with like 100,000 in traffic on like random blog posts that are not doing anything really. Can we use that to, I don't know, like, start making sure we're like embedding bits about our product, or like talking about our product, or like embedding an ebook that we can get downloads for, like just in some way, like driving some metrics that they can see, like, okay, cool, we can start to play with this a bit more. You can see it as well as like, we've got a load of traffic, like instead of like, it's kind of like we can just advertise to this traffic in some way. Basically, it's like a billboard. We have 100,000 people hitting this page right now. What can we do with that? You could just promote things. I don't know. Like, there's other ways maybe we can leverage that. Or if it's just purely noise, you think it's not even the right audience, like, you can consider just deleting that page and getting rid of the issue, and just like being like, okay, if you're in that situation, it's highly likely that you probably just focused on the wrong intent and buying stage anyway. And really what you want to be doing is like getting those people at a time when they're most primed to want to reach out and get a product like yours. So like, either they're really experiencing the pain point, or they are really experiencing the pain point you solve, and so are willing to listen to a solution like yours, or are in the market right now for actually buying a product. So there's a few different reasons it might be, but
I think you're absolutely spot on. I think the way you worded it, like, it's almost like a billboard for your brand, for your site. And I think that is maybe a way more of us need to be thinking about, especially with how traffic from LLMs is obviously increasing. I know it's very, very small numbers, but it does seem to be, trending in the right direction, all that kind of stuff. I think for a lot of that kind of process, we're going to see a lot more of people doing the research stages, a lot of the top of funnel stuff, a lot of the comparisons of that messy middle kind of stuff directly in LLMs, directly in AI mode or ChatGPT search or Perplexity or whatever it is. And then that final click, and I know this is a big kind of conversation in the industry, is like, what is that final quality of the click from an LLM driven search compared to a traditional search, right? Because you would often go in and do research on that particular website, or find a comparison site or whatever it is, and do your research there, and then finally click through to something once you made your mind up. Whereas now, it's more likely that people will be doing that research on the SERP itself, and then that final click has way higher intent than it did before, because it's not coming through to a listicle or a blog post that is hugely informational, but exactly as you were saying there, Ben, doesn't have any links to products, or doesn't have a clear idea of all this kind of stuff. This is exactly a conversation I was having with an e-commerce client of mine the other day, where we were talking about content, talking about how content can drive revenue, and having those things. Okay, when you mention a product, link to it. When you're talking about a particular, they work like medical supplies and stuff like that. So like, oh, you're talking about medical stuff, link to your pages about the things. Like, don't go crazy, don't just completely oversaturate it, but in general, the first time you mention a thing that is a thing on your page, a link to the thing on your page, like link to the other things on your site. Have a CTA. The ebook thing is a brilliant example. We were talking to them about how You could do sort of like checklists or health and safety downloadable guides and advice stuff or whatever, that kind of thing. And that is not necessarily a thing that is going to, if you're giving a PDF away for free, you're not going to get a sale out of that necessarily. But as you said at the top of the show, Ben, it's visibility, it's brand awareness, it's being that thing of like, oh yeah, every time I look at the health and safety poster, it's from that company. Maybe I should buy my next product from that company, kind of thing, right?
Yeah. It's a touch point, isn't it? And I think people, however much you don't, however influential that is, it may be a tiny amount, but if it's one of your many touch points or things they've seen about you, times they've heard about you, and when they do maybe eventually need a product and become an in-market buyer, and they see a listicle of the top 10 companies for this, and then they go, oh, I recognize that brand. That's another way that it can be helpful to you.
Yeah, definitely. I think there's even, again, coming back around to the PPC side of things, coming back around to the other side of things, it's all those different touch points working together to build a bigger picture, to represent a brand, to be consistent across it, all this kind of stuff.
Cool.
I guess let's finish things off with, before we get to recommendations, a little bit of speculation. Let's poke the AI beast, as it were, Ben. And how do you think?
I love it. So,
I know, right? We have to eventually. We've touched on LLMs and AI a couple of times. I always joke that we have a drinking game on the show of like, how long can we go until we mention AI and LLMs? But it's getting more and more inevitable with each week passing by. I think for me, like I said, the kind of theory of the higher quality traffic there, does that kind of shift your approach to anything you're doing in terms of having this revenue-driven strategy, having this kind of approach to it where the focus is making money rather than getting traffic? Because we've seen so many things affected by AI mode and AI overviews and all this kind of stuff, with traffic reducing, the great decoupling that we've seen a lot of people discussing. Does that kind of reinforce you that this is the right thing to do? How are you feeling in terms of, good SEO is good SEO, or do you need a restructure? I've seen quite a lot of people talking on both sides, so I'm interested to get your opinion.
Yeah, it's a hard one, and I think, but I think it's something that every SEO should be taking very seriously, and I think most people are at the moment. It's been a long time. It's been so nice to bury our heads a little bit and hope that things aren't changing as much. But yeah, I think massively, this is the time to start learning about AI, how it works, what matters now, how that should change our strategies. I think for us, it has been a bit more of a validation. Like we want to double down on those. Like for us, bottom of funnel has become even more important. I don't think like completely like all of the top of funnel traffic, people using Google to search for like what is this and how to do this thing it hasn't completely shifted over to an LLM yet. It does look like it's going that way to some extent. It does look like 70% of that traffic is not being parsed anymore and things like that. That certainly does devalue a strategy focused on a lot of the top of funnel stuff, I think. Maybe that's an opinion, I don't know, but it reduces the opportunity available there. And at the same time, like what was happening before is everyone was writing these listicles explaining their product versus competitors and everything. And then suddenly we now have like an AI research assistant layer in between them and doing it for you, basically talking about your product, explaining you, suggesting you, all that kind of thing. And that's actually it's very powerful, I think, like instead of pitching yourself, to have someone else pitch you and explain you for a particular use case or product, like that's really great. Definitely, I think a lot of people are using ChatGPT. Like it's one of the biggest questions we have with clients is like their lead flow from ChatGPT has gone right up. They're also noticing ChatGPT may be pitching them the wrong way or pitching a product they had 2 years ago instead of their latest product. and things like that. So I think it's very important to like stay on top of. And so like a lot of what we focus on as an agency is like that, like ranking for bottom of funnel searches, people who are looking for a product. So if some of that demand has shifted to LLMs, it's definitely something like we're doubling down on, and we're seeing like it's like definitely a direct correlation between the people who are ranking very well for that content in Google and they have written comparisons to their competitors and have written about the category and things. They're the ones who are being recommended by ChatGPT. So yeah, to answer your question.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. I think I said a lot of people, we're seeing a reinforcement of a lot of the good best practice kind of stuff, right? Can you hear that drilling in the background, by the way?
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought so. I think they're literally drilling into my feet. It is really loud in here.
Is there?
Like the desk is shaking.
Do you want to wait?
That is mad. Still going.
Maybe they're drilling like a hole that you're going to fall through in a minute.
Yeah, some Wile E. Coyote shit. It feels like it. What is going on? There we go. I paused. See if I can quickly get a question in between drilling. Yeah, that totally makes sense. I think a lot of us are seeing the kind of SEO best practice stuff still applying, right? Like you said, there's a lot of reassurance and validation for a lot of the good stuff that we're running. Hopefully, if you're already moving in the right direction, it continues to be the right direction. Good work continues to be good work. Fingers crossed. Obviously, who knows what happens in the next few years, but I think this is definitely true. I think a lot of people being a bit too reactionary and freaking out and like, change your strategy right now, otherwise you'll get left behind kind of stuff. You don't know that. AI mode has been live for a matter of weeks. Like, we don't know what's going on.
I think it's just always good to keep a finger on the pulse and like double down on what's working, and figure out what isn't working, definitely. But yeah, it's going to be changing all the time. So just keeping on top of it. Yeah. Absolutely. And I think something I'm seeing, for any like SEOs listening to this and agency owners and things, I think I'm seeing like a lot of, from the people I talk to, like, a lot of like kind of despondency, people who, just kind of giving up a little bit on SEO, like thinking like, finally, this is the actual nail in the coffin of SEO is dead kind of thing. And I actually just genuinely don't think that. And it's not what I'm getting from the conversations I'm having with customers either. Like, they are like getting more leads than ever. Like, this is spurring on a lot of people to kind of invest and get interested in, like, they may have been ignoring SEO, but now they're not. They're like, okay, AI is the future, LLMs are the future, SEO is a massive part of how we can be in LLMs. How can we start investing in that? So I think like this is an evolution, but SEO is still working. It's what we do in this industry. Apparently it's every 2-3 months the whole thing changes.
Yep. SEO is dead. Classic.
Yeah. No, I think like this could be an exciting opportunity if people take it too as well. So
yeah, 100%. Let's finish things off with some recommendations then, Ben. What is one actionable thing you'd recommend the viewers and listeners to start doing right now?
Oh, good question. I didn't prepare for that. One actual thing that you can be doing, in terms of how to make money with SEO, right? Not just like life skills.
SEO in general. It can be a life skill if you like. I honestly don't mind. Whatever you think will be valuable.
Okay, good question.
Could literally be like, drink more water if you want.
Definitely drink more water. Yeah. I don't know. Maybe let's not go SEO just because I haven't got that prepared. But what was I going to say? Yeah, I think here's an actual tip. If you like, one of my big lessons as someone who's like started my own business has been how important it is to like look after yourself if you want your business to survive. So like going to the gym, sleeping. Like, I take naps at 10 a.m. if I'm tired nowadays. Like I'm not like I'm like I need to be, otherwise I'm gonna like burn out. So I just prioritize that 100%. So there's my actionable tip. Like if you feel like you need something, work later, have a nap, go get some food, take a break.
Nice.
Yeah,
Especially thankfully, I think we see a lot of like flexi time from a lot of employers as well. I think that's a really nice way to kind of like, just need an hour's break, got to come back later, whatever, have that thing. And like you said, especially true for business owners and people starting their own business as well. Like,
yeah,
don't burn yourself out and destroy your health just for, that little bit. Oh, beating that, we were saying earlier, like beating that competitor on the SERPs or whatever. Like,
seriously, been there. Yeah, it probably sounded a little bit like yeah, like if you're working in house and you have very strict hours, that probably sounded a bit like a rubbish piece of advice. Out of touch. I'm sorry, but yeah, like, even then, I don't know. Like the culture we have in our company is like you work when you want, just get the work done. So
Yep.
I forget, but it's yeah, take a sneaky nap.
There you go. Pro tip. Next one is recommend a tool or a piece of software that you've been enjoying recently that you think maybe people don't know about or don't know enough about.
Ooh, I'm gonna give a shout out to SEOtesting.com.
Mm,
I don't know how well known or not that tool is, but it saves so much time for me and for us. And yeah, it's like does cannibalization audits. It does things that like a Search Console won't do, like exporting the queries with the URLs attached and like little weird things. Um, and it also does like it does so many things. Go check it out. Like, it has like it basically is like a layer on Search Console, but it runs reports in like loads of different areas. Yeah, highly recommend.
100%. They've sponsored the show before. We know Nick and Ryan, the guys over at SEO Testing,
Cool.
good dudes. We use it on our agency regularly as well. So yeah, good shout, Ben. Appreciate it. Shout out to the SEO Testing crew. And last but not least, not even necessarily work or SEO related, what have you been enjoying recently? Is it a video, a film, a book, an article, a podcast, a video game, whatever it is? What have you
Ooh.
been enjoying recently? What have you been up to recently?
I just bought PS5.
Hey, nice. Welcome to the crew.
When I did my A levels, like 15 years ago, or something, maybe, I gave it up and now I'm back.
Welcome back, mate. Welcome back.
Yeah, no, and I have to say, this is a complaint. I've not been enjoying that. It took me like 2 days to download the updates and the game and
Oh,
like
yeah.
that's
You
the
got
word.
to update firmware for your controllers and stuff. That's always fun.
Oh, yeah, BS. That's like that's a small one, but can I give a book recommendation as
Absolutely. Yeah, of course. Yeah.
well? Yeah, so I just read this book called When the Cranes Fly South by Lisa Ridson, who is a Swedish kind of Swedish author. But yeah, if you like sad books, incredibly sad. If you don't, avoid it. But it's about like it's kind of fascinating. Like it's like an old man from his point of view and like him going through the carer journey of being like kind of treated like a child as an old man and his perspective. And yeah, wow, it's intense, but it's was so good. Randomly picked up. So
nice.
Yeah.
Appreciate the recommendation. Last thing, what games are you looking forward to playing on your PS5 then? What's the most anticipated? What's brought you back? What are you looking forward to?
I've only got Call of Duty.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I've got Call of Duty Black Ops 6 or something. And to be honest, I'm not a serious gamer. I'm like, I want to like log on for 20 minutes and like kill some stuff and then get back off.
Nice. Yeah.
But I think I need recommendations. So if you have a game recommendation.
Oh, I'm full of them, man. I am a diehard gamer. So
yeah.
Have you played any like roguelites or any roguelites kind of stuff where you do a run and then you start again from scratch kind of thing? That it's really good for like short playthroughs.
What's it called? Road lights.
Rogue, as in like a thief, like a rogue.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's either like or light Lite or Like. It's a genre that was basically kicked off by the game Rogue back in the day, and it is often a thing. So one of the big examples is Hades, and Hades 2 comes out later this year, I think, fingers crossed, where essentially you will have a run and you will do it. It can be totally millions of different genres within this. It can be a shooter, it can be a platformer, it can be a fighting game, whatever it is. And you essentially do a run where you try and get upgrades and beat the bosses and defeat the enemies and all that kind of stuff. And when you die, you reset back to the beginning. So there are certain permanent upgrades you keep and certain ones you don't. So you could level up. You could get to level 20 in this run and you bought a particular weapon. So the next time you start back at level 1, but you will have that weapon for a future run, for example. And I found that kind of stuff because I'm quite into like handheld gaming and stuff like that. So I can get in a quick run on my lunch break or, while I'm commuting or whatever, that kind of stuff. It's brilliant for that. I have a bunch of recommendations for that genre because it is kind of exploded over the last 5 to 10 years. But yeah, if you look at short runs that are like satisfying, and if you don't get too frustrated, they can be very, very addictive.
No, I love that. Yeah, I definitely love that kind of stuff. Reminds me of, kind of, I used to play that on like Game Boy Color as a kid, kind of thing, where a level that you need to get through. Yeah. So I'll have a look into Hades and the roguelites. You may have ruined my ruin my free time or ruin my business.
Sorry. I put Spicy Margarita out of business single-handedly. Like, Ben, have you played Hades? And then 6 months later, like, yeah, we had to close up shop because Ben got addicted to Hades, and it's all Jack's fault.
Yeah, we'll become a drinks company for real.
Exactly. That's the plan. But speaking of Spicy Margarita, speaking of you, Ben, where can people follow you and the agency and what you guys are doing in SEO?
So website is spicymargarita.co. .com was gone. LinkedIn is almost everything comes out of my LinkedIn. So yeah, go to Ben Goodey SEO on Google or something. I also have a newsletter on how the fuck. It's something where maybe it's a little bit on pause, but it's coming back with a vengeance at some point. So definitely sign up and you'll get like our latest updates. But yeah, that's on and then fxck.com.
I appreciate the pre-censored branding there. I love it.
Yeah. Didn't want to get banned by email servers.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah. That's straight into the spam box.
Seriously.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining, man. It's been a really great conversation. And yeah, thank you for taking the time.
Thanks so much for having me.
And that wraps up this week's episode. Thank you so much for joining me, wherever you are joining, watching or listening on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you're enjoying, watching, listening. And yeah, huge thank you to Ben for joining me on this week's episode as well. I had a really, really fun conversation. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did recording it. And I have some fantastic guests coming up over the next few weeks, including some of my favorite people I've met through things like Brighton SEO and conferences like Aid Holder and Abby Bennett's, and some brilliant other conversations and guests coming up over the next few weeks as well. In the meantime, thank you so much for watching and listening. Please do like, subscribe, and all that kind of good stuff that helps spread the word of Search with Candour. And yeah, in the meantime, have a lovely week, and I will see you next week.